Welcome back, E7 fam, to another balance adjustment preview video. This one will be talking about the December 23rd, 2021 balance patch adjustment preview, obviously. So, I'm not going to waste too much time. You guys already know the deal here. I'm going to give you my 2 cents on what I think about these buffs. Do I think they're good? Do I think they're bad? Do I think anything will change? All of that good stuff down below. So we're going to be talking about today Archdemon Shadow, Judge Kise, Melissa, Commander Lorina, All-Rounder Wanda, and the 2 artifacts, Wind Rider and Fairytale for a Nightmare. I will try to put up on the screen here a list of things I think the characters each need, and do I think that these buffs address them at all, so that way we kind of have like a coherent and cohesive way of understanding, is it a good buff or is it not. So the first one to talk about is Archdemon Shadow. Really good PvP character in the sense of Guild Wars used to be one of the best Guild War characters in the game, especially when Tempest Cern, Landy, and Fallen Cecilia was the meta defense. Very good at that time, and the reason for that is because of her seal, which was somewhat inconsistent. She fell out of favor once ReZero came around because Rem came out and Violet got a bunch of buffs, and obviously Bellion has only exacerbated the issue. So when I'm looking for buffs on this character, I'm looking for increased ability to land that seal. I'm looking for ways to deal with counterattack characters. And then obviously this is a character with very low damage, so any extra damage would be helpful. So the first thing to talk about, Soulburn, it was changed to ignore effect resistance. So already we ticked one off of the list there. We wanted a way to consistently do the thing that makes this character powerful, which is seal off passives. And previously, there was one character in particular, I'm talking about Rowana, that was incredibly good against Archdemon Shadow, and being able to ignore the effect resistance on that character made things a lot better. Obviously, it's not going to be the greatest matchup still, because if they're playing Stella Harpa, which is what most people used to play her on to counter Archdemon, then obviously that's not going to work, but it does give you a better chance against at least one of her bad matchups. She's still terrible, I feel like, against Rem, Bellion, and Violet, so we'll kind of take it. Next year we have Twisted Power. We made it so that Touch of Chaos has a 5% better chance to proc, 10% extra chance to proc if the target is already sealed. This just translates to more damage, easier way to build focus. We're not going to say no to this. Pretty good change overall. Again, doesn't address the biggest issue. Pretty much the Soulburn made it so that the Rowana matchup was a bit better, but overall, not really a huge change here. Next up, we're going to talk about the change to Dissolution, which is the S3. We have made it so now that the S3 has a 70% chance to decrease the defense of all enemies for 2 turns, in addition to those burns and unable to be counter characteristics that it used to have. Defense break is great because it addresses another concern of the character. We had low damage, and now we have a bit better chance of doing more damage, and the other characters on our team don't have to lift quite as hard to carry the Archdemon once she's sealed off the character. Like before, you would seal somebody and then you might not be able to finish the job because, let's say, your other damage dealer died. Archdemon doesn't really have the greatest damage, so yeah, that's another one off the list. So overall, these are pretty good buffs. I think they are sensible, smart, they help the character. Will it make the meta? Maybe, maybe not. We'll talk more about the artifact change at the end, because I do think that will contribute to her being a lot better. I don't ever think that this character was bad per se. I actually think this is the most underrated character and pretty much in the entire game. It's not that she's unusable. It's just that she's fallen on a little bit of hard times, and I don't know if these adjustments will fix them, but they do definitely put the character in a better spot and in the right direction. So overall, I think this is a pretty good set of changes. What's not a good set of changes is for Judge Kise. If you remember from my choosing Moonlight 5-star selector video, I ranked this character dead last, and the reason is because it has very mediocre damage compared to other characters at lower rarities. Judge Kise has also got a super over-reliance on specific teammates, especially ones that carry Tehagel's Ancient Book to actually perform. And the character just doesn't really feel like she has a niche in the meta at all. Again, mediocre damage dealer, not particularly great when built bulky, not particularly great when built fast, because you don't really have great options for like setting up the S3. So when I'm looking for what this character needs, it's got to be less dependency on teammates, has to have some way to outclass other characters at lower rarities in some way, has to have some kind of, niche besides being just a slow damage dealer. And then on top of that, she needs to have some survivability, because I feel like that's usually what decides if a DPS is good in the current meta. So the first change is they made it so that all of the excess text on End of Evil, which is her S2, was shifted into her S3 Wave of Light. So now, End of Evil used to be, what it did before, was a 75% chance to dispel one buff from each enemy and then increase the damage by up to 40% depending on how many enemies are on the enemy team, and you could soul burn it for 20 extra souls to grant an extra turn. Now, it is just an average AoE multiplier with a blind for one turn. That's not good. That doesn't solve any issues. They basically made this character into the same issue I have with Fairytale Tenebria, what we talked about in the previous video, how to play Fairytale Tenebria. It's a terrible design decision to put all of your eggs in one basket. Wave of Light is literally the character now, because we have just an okay S1. I mean, defense break is fine, but it's not like amazing when the character's other skills are meant to do most of the heavy lifting. Like S1, you want something nice on it when you aren't using your S2 or S3. The S2 feels incredibly lackluster now, right? So now we have two skills that just feel like they're things to do until our big power move comes back up. And that is this change to Wave of Light. Attacks all enemies by distorting space and time before a 80% chance each to dispel one buff and increase skill cooldown 3 times by 1 turn. Grants skill nullifier once to the caster. Damage dealt increases with more enemies. Okay, so breaking it down. Now we have a 80% chance to dispel one buff instead of 75 from before. And she can do this on her first turn without needing a soul burn or another player. So yes, we technically did reduce the need for her to have another teammate, because now you don't need to soul burn in order to use your S3, and you don't need a character to get there to do it. So yes, that technically does solve some issues. The problem is that like nothing else I feel like really mattered here, because again we're in just everything's all in on Wave of Light. So yeah, we got that skill nullifier. Again, that is survivability, but it's like the lowest form of survivability, right? And because you have to, like, you don't have a dependence now on other people, right? But like it still doesn't change the fact that you don't do anything at mid and high speeds of this character. So you still need people in order to assist you at low speed. So this only affected you if you were playing a mid or a high speed Judge Kise, and neither of those do anything, because this character is not fast enough to go first and isn't impactful enough when built fast with no damage to do anything. So yeah, that's rough. And then we loaded this damage dealt. It's presumably still the 40% here. Like we literally shifted all the power again from End of Evil into Wave of Light. And then we made it so that we get 5% more strip chance, and we don't need to soul burn in case they have like a Bellion, right? But like the play pattern hasn't changed, right? We haven't got better at mid speeds. We haven't gotten better or found a niche at mid or high speeds. Like nothing has changed. Like it feels like you could just play Judge Kise in the same spots, and if they had Bellion, you don't feel completely hosed. So yeah, this solves literally nothing. And then they changed the Malagoras and increase the damage on Wave of Light. So presumably by increasing the damage on Wave of Light and lowering the damage that the Malagoras gives, we've increased the floor of this move's damage and kept the ceiling exactly the same. So overall, this character literally soul burns to strip buffs and use 2 moves to try to wipe your team at the cost of 20 souls. That's what the buffs did. And we got a skill nullifier in case they have a counter attack, so that way we don't just auto die. So nothing changed. Like literally nothing changed. Nothing changed here at all on these buffs. This is like one of the most disappointing set of buffs I think I've ever seen. Like we talked about how disappointing the Euphine buffs were last time around, but like we were pleasantly surprised that it was decent for Pain, Pursuer, Moroi. I'm hoping that's the case for Judge Kise, where like I am pleasantly surprised and that I am wrong. I want to be wrong on these buffs because if you remember from this ML Selector video, I love Judge Kise. I think this character is super cool, really awesome character. And it's disappointing that this character has been this trash for this long, only to receive this level of buffs, and it feels like nothing changed. Like, these are the kind of buffs that make you ask yourself, do the devs play their own game? Because they would know, based on data analytics, that nobody plays this character, and they would probably at least try to understand what makes the character not playable, and then address that. And it feels like they kind of half did it. Like I said, we did get survivability, and we did get, less dependence on people, but like, it's like in the wrong way, right? Like it doesn't really do anything. At this point, just throw the whole character out and redesign it. Maybe you just don't want to like spend time or on new assets or something. Like do something. This character needs help, and I don't think anything here in this patch is going to save her either. Sorry to say, Judge Kise fans. So now let's talk about Melissa. So Melissa's play pattern for the most part is what it's supposed to be is you S3, you curse somebody after removing all of their buffs, and then you're supposed to S2 to kill somebody and get immortality and keep that immortality extended and your buffs extended. So you're supposed to S3 one person, curse them, S2 another person, kill them, and the person you initially cursed. The problem is, nowadays, you can't really consistently do that. You cannot consistently just blow up a character with the S2 to guarantee the S3. So what the intended play pattern of pick off two people is, the actual play pattern is I S3 you, I curse you, I S2 you so that I can keep my character and she does not auto die. That is the play pattern of Melissa right now. And so we got a buff now where the S2 gives immunity and immortality so that way when you one-shot somebody and you extend your buffs, you can't be stunned, I guess. But the thing is, like, people could just strip the stuff because it's only a one-turn cooldown, especially since we're going into a character that can reduce the cooldown of buffs by one turn and will probably be incredibly prevalent in the metagame. So this change to manifestation feels like it does literally nothing, right? So then we talk about Blood Bloom. Blood Bloom was given the skill text of grants an extra turn to the caster, cursing for 2 turns regardless of whether the attack hits. That is so narrow and terrible that I don't even understand what the point of this is. This is like literally saying, if I miss Violet, or I miss a Milim, or I miss a Moonlight Dreamblade, or I miss a Shepherd of the Hollow, right? I still get it. At this point, just give the move hit chance, right? Just give the move hit chance, because that's what you're saying. You're saying we're giving you hit chance, but none of the damage. Like, it's not like giving this character hit chance. Like, that didn't break the character, right? Like, if this move had like 50 hit chance on it, people would be like, yeah, another great counter to dodge units. Like, Melissa would have a better use, because like right now she exists to terminate Violet, and that's it. And this change does not really give you better odds against the other dodge units. Like, it's a little bit, right? But it's not like enough, right? If this move just said grants an extra turn to the caster, cursing for 2 turns and granting you 50% hit chance, right? You guys would play this. Like, you would play this because you could even Blood Bloom into like blue units, right? And it would be good. Like, Melissa would actually legitimately do a thing, but she doesn't. Her other big problem that she has is that she's slow for a mage. She has insane damage, but she's slow. And her only survivability is if she goes blazing fast and she gets the first turn so she can get the immortality so she doesn't auto die, right? So they didn't do anything. Like, one of the things that could have saved this character was just give her an EE with like 10 speed. That would have done a lot more than anything here in this pile of text. Like, this character either needed speed or needed, like, how BBK starts with immortality, needed something like that to guarantee that she gets the first turn to do the job. Right now, she literally does not do her job, and nothing here helps you do the job better of either, 2-for-1ing opponents or taking your first turn. So this is a fail. Just like Judge Kise, this is a complete fail. Next up, we'll talk about Commander Lorina. And Commander Lorina feels really, really good right now. And honestly, I think I'm going to rebuild mine after this patch comes out, because I do think that she is quite good. So now they have changed it so that her S1 sharp blow deals damage proportional to the target's max health. Previously, Commander Lorina only has 2 uses. One is a Brutal Ferris DPS, and the other as an Abyss/Advent character. While, as far as I know, Brutal Ferris and other Expedition characters, you can't deal damage proportional to their max health. It is part of their passive. So I don't think that this will help you there. So no real increase to playability there. The change based on how much damage this is to bosses and Abyss and Advent makes this not only a great character to use for new players, because obviously a lot of low-level players use Lorina and Abyss. That makes it a great change there to help them out. This might be the premier damage dealer for Abyss and for Advent going forward for a lot of things. So this character has big PvE energy right now, big potential with this change. We'll have to see the numbers, but this is a very, very, very good change, very welcome change. Makes her carves out a niche as like a premier PvE damage dealer over a lot of other options. So I'm very excited about this. Spiritual Armament was changed now in the runes so that it increases your defense by an additional 5% per stack instead of 1. If you guys don't remember, the S2 on Lorina gives 5 stacks once every time she attacks. Gives 1 stack, stacking up to 5 times every time she attacks. And you will get increased attack and defense every stack. The stack has been changed to 5% defense instead of 1. So instead of getting like 80 to 100 bonus defense for free on your Lorina, you're going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of between like 200 to like 280 based on how you build the Lorina. So this is a welcome change because it helps a squishy character survive in hard content like Abyss, like Advent. Welcome change. Awesome. Next up, we made it so that we shifted the old glory rune here into the hardship rune, so there's no functional change. At the end of the day, you do lose 5% CR pushback on Spiral Breakthrough, but this character is literally only being played in PvE for the most part, and most bosses are immune to CR pushback, so you don't really care. This is only really going to affect you if you're like using S3 on ads and Abyss. There's like literally no change otherwise. Then we have the change to Glory Rune here. When you use your S3 Spiral Breakthrough, it increases the damage dealt to boss and elite monsters by 20%. Huge. Absolutely huge. This one does actually affect Brutal Ferris, and honestly, if this one, based on how it's worded, does allow us to affect Brutal Ferris, because Daydream Joker doesn't work because it's dealing extra damage based on the max health. Like, it's a little bit weird. We'll see how this goes. I'm pretty sure this doesn't affect Expeditions in any way, but if it does, this will really hammer it home. And even just this change might be enough to hammer it home that Commander Lorina is a better character than Terranor Guard for some Brutal Ferris lineups. Really, really good changes to Sharp Blow and the Glory Rune here on Lorina. Makes her excellent PvE character, and you definitely want to have this character ready and ready to go. Basically, you want a pocket Lorina for when the new Abyss floors come out, for when new challenging content like Advent comes out, because she feels like she has cemented herself as a premier single target DPS with these changes. Next up, let's talk about All-Rounder Wanda, who is ridiculous. Honestly, this set of changes is like research your carrot level broken, in my opinion. So when they brought out Cerise, they said that they didn't really want to have restrict when you got restricted. They realized if you could push somebody back with restrict on, it was completely game breaking. The synergy between slow and combat readiness pushback is pretty devastating, and when you add restrict into the mix, it's potentially game breaking. So for some reason, All-Rounder Wanda, we're just going to give you slow and decreased combat readiness in the same kit. So now weak point here, her S1, is a CR pushback on anyone, regardless of whether they are targeted or not. So now her S2 target gimmick is just there for random bonus damage. It's not a mandatory thing to get the rest of the kit to actually line up. So that's a welcome change. The big crazy change here is the change to her S3 one shot, one kill. Now, instead of being a 100% chance to stun one target for 2 turns and give it 50% unhealable for 2 turns, it is now a 2-turn stun with a 2-turn slow. And this is on a character that can't miss, basically. This character has an insane amount of bonus hit chance on all of their moves. So one shot, one kill basically says, if I hit you and you're a slow character, you are not taking a turn. If this hits your rem, the only way you are taking a turn with your rem in the entire match is if you kill someone on the enemy team to make her break out via diva mode. This is absolutely debilitating to certain slow characters. Like if you were like a counter bruiser, this is pretty rough. Like, and when you factor in, I'm jumping here ahead, this wedge rune. Wedge rune has made it so that one shot, one kill has a 100% chance to decrease buff durations of the target by 1 turn before the effect. So now, let's say Wanda goes first, right? And you one shot, one kill a Little Queen Charlotte, who's usually around 150 speed. That LQC is not taking a turn. Like they're just screwed unless they cleanse it. It's done. So this is very, very strong set of changes to one shot, one kill. And then we have the increase is the hit chance of weak point by 70% instead of 40%. So now your S1 has a great chance to actually hit dodge characters like Violet. And on top of the fact that one shot, one kill already basically guarantees that they are not going to be able to dodge it because of all the hit chance that move has. So yeah, this character is just in a prime spot because it hoses slow bruisers and it hoses dodge units. And if that wasn't enough, the problem with Wanda is that it was hard for her to take a first turn. The speed rune has been changed so that it's just Guiding Light. She just has free Guiding Light now. So, yeah, this is nuts. Build Wanda, guys. We'll see how good it is when this actually drops on the 23rd. But just reading this, I think Wanda is the clear winner of the patch. And it's a free-to-play option against some of the most cancerous units in the game because, again, the two things she's good against, dodge characters like Violet, really slow counter bruisers like Ramambellion. So, yeah, I do think that Wanda is going to be a meta character, and this is probably the strongest set of buffs in the entire patch. Last thing to talk about are the, the changes here to Wind Rider and Fairytale for Nightmare, the 2 artifacts. The change to Wind Rider is really welcome. Wind Rider's biggest issue was that it was a win more artifact. You didn't get anything from your artifact unless you were already winning the game. They have since changed it to an increase of 20% attack up front and the remaining 40% after you finally get the kill. So because this gives you an increase of 20% attack up front, and it doesn't stack with the attack buff that you would normally get from Thieves artifacts like Alexa's Basket or from Moonlight Dreamblade, makes it actually pretty valuable, especially if you're on a character that already can give themselves an attack buff, or you're a character that already does a fair bit of damage up front. So a really fast character like Assassin Kali or Assassin Sid can really benefit from the changes on this because they already have big, impactful, a single target attacks when they go first. And this really snowballs it. Like that 20% extra attack might be enough to just juice them to get the kill. And then they'll get the stealth and the bonus attack. And again, that bonus attack does not count as an attack buff. So it stacks with an attack buff. So this is another form of stackable attack. When we talked about Lilius, remember I told you guys Vigor, because it is an attack buff that is not named attack buff, it's really valuable. Wind Rider is the same way, and this is probably going to be one of the better options, I think, for a lot of Thieves. It's probably not as good as Basket, but I do think because it is a source of damage amp that is not named attack, it's worth playing. When you think about other damage amp sources that are not attack, you think of Symbol of Unity, Portrait of the Savior. Yes, those are damage increases, but they're played because they are damage amps that are not tied to attack buff. So yeah, really good change overall to Wind Rider, and I think it does address one of the chief problems with the attack, with the artifact, is it just didn't do anything unless you were already winning. Fairytale for a Nightmare is an interesting one. It now, after an extra attack, counterattack, and dual attack, has a 60% chance to dispel one buff from the target and a 100% chance to deal 1500 fixed damage. Do note the chance to dispel one buff and the chance to deal the additional damage remains 60 and 100% each, regardless of the artifact's enhancement level. So, this obviously is aimed at Archdemon Shadow, which is a character that is almost universally played on counter set and pretty much thrives on just dual attacks and extra attacks. She takes so many of them. So that character is already playing one of 2 artifacts. You're either playing Yellow Violin, which has the higher chance to strip than this, or you're playing Abyssal Crown. If you played Yellow Violin, obviously this is close, but not quite as good in terms of the strip, but you do get a quite bit of extra damage here. You will get more damage on it, right? And as far as I know, I believe it's 1150 true damage on a plus 15 artifact. You don't really need to chase a ton of these in right now while Fairytale is up, because at the end of the day, you're only going to get like 300 to 350 more damage for hundreds of dollars of wailing. So yeah, if you really think 300 damage or whatever is worth, hundreds of dollars, then by all means go for it. But I think you only really need one copy of this. I do think it is a good alternative. Me personally, I think it's better than Violin with the changes. That said, I don't know if it's better than Abyssal Crown. I'll probably be playing this because my really good plus 30 Abyssal Crown is already spoken for on Politis, and she seems to be, yet again, another meta-defining hero. So I don't think I'll be swapping it. But I do think that this is a very strong artifact. It's just debatable if you had in a vacuum a plus 30 of this versus a plus 30 of Abyssal Crown, which one is better? And if the answer is Abyssal Crown, then does this really end up helping the character long term? Is it really enough to push her into the meta? If we're even having the conversation of Abyssal Crown versus this on a character that's already out of the meta and might be fringe with the changes, yeah, I don't know. A lot of people, I think, are going nuts over it. It might be better than I'm giving it credit. But right now, as I see it, it's just slightly worse Violin with probably like a pretty sizable increase in damage, I would say, because of that extra like 1100 true damage being thrown out every couple of turns. So yes, this might decide a bunch of games. It might be enough to push her into it. But right now, like I said, it's probably about even with Abyssal Crown, because stun locking an opponent is game ending. And I don't think true damage is as game ending as just stun locking them with Abyssal. But time will tell. So yeah, those are my thoughts. If I missed anything, let me know down in the comments below. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I will see you all in the next one. Ciao.